How's it going, guys? JP here. Welcome back to another mixed martial arts related video. As you guys know, this is kind of my documented journey through the history of MMA, and we're starting where it all began in the UFC, and we are journeying through all of the events. We are currently on UFC number 5, which took place April 7th of 1995, and it was subtitled Return of the Beast. So UFC 5 also features the first super fight, but let's start with the alternate bouts, which are not on the disc. I believe they're not. I actually didn't check on this one, but I assume they're not. The first fight was Dave Beneteau defeating Asbel Cancillo via punches, TKO. And then we had Guy Mezger defeating John Dowdy also by TKO punches. So something a little odd right away was I thought in UFC 4 that because Guy Mezger won that fight that he was going to get a spot in the tournament. I guess they changed their mind, or maybe he changed his mind. I was kind of disappointed in that. I didn't remember that happening from when I seen a couple of these a long time ago. So I really like the idea behind that, you know, like let's have another fight, and you know, the guy who wins this fight will fight in the next tournament. But I guess they scrapped it. So the quarterfinal fights, we have John Hess versus Andy Anderson. Now Andy Anderson, I believe, if my memory serves, is actually seen in the crowd in previous UFC events. So I guess he was kind of like a fan, and you know, followed the UFC around and tried to get in, and eventually did. So he fights John Hess, and he's quite smaller than John Hess. The fight starts off explosive right away. They both meet in the center. They start trading blows instantly. John Hess, you know, gets the advantage. Pretty much just elbowing, you know, punching, dropping elbows to Andy Anderson's spine, which always like makes me like cringe. Eventually it ends up on the ground. Andy Anderson in the guard, he, you know, delivers some punches of his own. Kind of, you know, I think he gets side control, and John Hess is able to stand back up. Eventually wins the fight via TKO. Just really, Andy Anderson didn't have much for John Hess. And then the second quarterfinal bout is Todd Medina versus Larry Cureton, and this one, not too great of a fight. Todd Medina wins by sort of like a forearm choke, I guess. And then we have Oleg Taktarov versus Ernie Verde. This was a pretty cool fight. You know, I like you know, Oleg's like composure during the fight, and this one, I believe Ernie gets the takedown, or ends up in Oleg Taktarov's guard. Taktarov kind of just takes his time and waits. Eventually gets a sweep, and then ends up on top and wins via choke. It was like a side choke, I guess. And then we move to the final quarterfinal bout, and that is Dan Severn versus Joe Charles. Dan Severn, of course, the runner-up in UFC number 4. Return of the Beast. He returns in this one, and he is just all over Joe Charles from the moment the bout starts. I believe Joe Charles tries to throw a kick or some sort of knee and gets taken down. Instantly, Severn is in like side control, kneeing Joe Charles's face. Just nasty ground and pound. Eventually takes his back and gets a rear naked choke, which is actually quite beautifully done, the way that the guy's holding onto the cage, and Dan Severn's on his back, and he lets go of the cage and just falls backwards and, you know, taps out. So that is your quarterfinal bouts. On to the semifinals. We have John Hess unable to continue. I'm not sure if they specifically said why, but he is replaced by Dave Beneteau, and he fights Todd Medina. So Dave Beneteau is the alternate. He comes in and pretty much gets the takedown. I believe he's in side control. Eventually gets the mount and just delivers some, bombs, and it's eventually stopped by Big John. And then we have Dan Severn versus Oleg Taktarov. This was a good fight. Not that competitive, but Dan Severn is a beast. Right away gets the takedown, has Taktarov up against the fence, just delivering nasty ground and pound, elbows, knees, headbutts, you name it. Taktarov at one point does kind of get in position for a armbar, but Severn does a good job of holding on to the fence and stacking Taktarov up to where he can't create enough space to get the armbar in full effect, while just landing devastating knees, just dropping his knee onto Taktarov's head. There's actually a point where he splits him open, and you can see it's a really good camera angle. You can see as soon as the knee hits, just blood dripping out of the face of Taktarov. Like I said, headbutts, elbows, and a lot more knees until eventually Big John stops the fight due to a cut, I guess, is the official ruling. So the final is Dave Beneteau versus Dan Severn. Then we move on to the super fight, which features Ken Shamrock and Royce Gracie. So this is actually a rematch. Royce Gracie won the first fight in the very first UFC, and this is kind of the new super fight format where you take two stars, put them together, and have them fight, and it goes in between the final to kind of give the finalists a chance to recover. So this fight has to be one of the most boring fights in UFC history, if not the most boring fight. Pretty much the whole time is spent in the guard. There is one stand-up after, I believe, 31 minutes, there's a stand-up, something like that. And the time limit is 30 minutes, and it was going to a draw when they decided to implement a 5-minute overtime round. And then we have a stand-up, which results in the slightest bit of action, another takedown, and then another 5 minutes of Ken Shamrock in Royce Gracie's guard. Now the whole time Royce was landing like heel strikes to Ken Shamrock's kidneys, I guess. Ken Shamrock's trying, very, very short range punches and headbutts. He never tries to posture up. It is just a boring fight because it's so long and there's just nothing happening. No transitions or improvements of position. It's just in the guard, landing short punches and headbutts and heel strikes from Royce Gracie, and then eventually Royce Gracie, after tiring out his fists from punching the back of Ken Shamrock's head, decides to just slap him a bunch. It really is just a awful fight, which leads us to the final, which is Dave Beneteau versus Dan Severn. Of course, Beneteau was the alternate. This is a pretty solid fight. I mean, it's definitely way more entertaining than the fight we watched before that. I guess it would be the co-main event. They kind of clinch up a bit, some knees, and Beneteau lands an uppercut in the clinch. Severn kind of waits and takes his time, eventually gets a trip, ends up on top, and I believe he wins by keylock. So yeah, it's some sort of keylock or Kimura or something like that. I didn't really see exactly. Dan Severn becomes UFC 5 champion, and is very excited about that. So that pretty much wraps it up for UFC 5. Honestly, it's probably my least favorite event out of the first 5, because that long fight was really boring, and the fights weren't that competitive, and besides Taktarov and Severn, I really didn't, there wasn't really anybody else I cared about. Royce Gracie, of course, I cared about, but that fight was just unwatchable. It really is an unwatchable fight. If you've seen it once, or like me, you've actually sat through it twice, you never want to see it again. So that is my review of UFC number 5. I'll probably take a little while of a break before I get to UFC 6, because UFC 5 kind of left a bad taste in my mouth, and I really don't want to watch another one right now. So I'll see you guys then. Bye.